Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode. Buying a mirrorless camera can be a rather daunting business. There are so many around, it's really not easy to know where to start. Do you need all the latest features, like IBIS, for example? Do you need full frame, or will a crop sensor serve you just as well? Should you buy new, or is it okay to buy used? It really can be a bit of a minefield, so to help you through it, I've put together my top tips for buying a mirrorless camera. And the first of those tips is buy used. Mirrorless cameras are really expensive. £1,000 is not considered a high price for one. You can pay £2,000, £3,000, even £4,000 for the top of the line latest models, and that's a lot of money. In each new model that they release, manufacturers give very small incremental improvements. It might be extra features, or it might be a higher resolution sensor, or it might be a slightly quicker autofocus. That's the business model, and that's designed to tempt us into upgrading. And I must say, I've been caught out by that more than once myself. However, what that means is that the market is flooded with mint condition gear, very little used, from the last generation or maybe the last but one generation, and they've been owned by people who have upgraded, and very often they've not had a lot of use. So you can get a mint model of the last generation or the last gen but one, just buying second hand. There are a lot around. Now, those cameras are often brilliant bargains, and I must admit that's the sector of the market that I tend to focus on when I'm thinking of buying another camera, maybe to review, or I've recently been looking at the Fuji X cameras and I've decided to keep one of them. I'm not sure which yet, because I need an APS-C sensor camera for the channel, and you can get some very powerful and very capable kit really cheaply. A Sony A7, for example, like the one that's filming this video now, a full frame mirrorless camera. The Sony A7 Mark I you can buy for around £500 in good condition, possibly less. You can buy an XT1, Fujifilm XT1 APS-C camera, a very beautiful camera, for around £250 to £300 for a really mint example. The XT2 I've got here, I recently paid £400 for that camera, body only, but it's in very nice condition, and I really wouldn't know it from a brand new camera. So it is around, and you can buy this very capable, very powerful kit very cheaply. The little GH2 over here, which is a micro four thirds camera, you can buy one of these. This is about 10 years old. You can buy one of these for around about £100, and so that's really good value. A colleague at work recently wanted to get into photography, a younger chap, and he asked me which camera he should get. I explained to him all about mirrorless cameras and how they can use vintage lenses. He was very interested, and he was initially wanting to buy one of the more advanced models. I advised him to go with a Panasonic GH2, because they're very cheap and he's a beginner, he can use it to learn on, and B, because it's a very powerful, fully featured camera with all of the manual settings that you could ever want. It does very nice video, and it's a fully featured camera that's really great to use on. So he paid £100 for a GH2. He's very happy with it, and he's learning photography on that. So you really don't need to pay through the nose. You don't need to buy new gear. There are lots of second-hand bargains in mint condition that it would be very difficult to tell apart from new. The newest kit is not always the most appropriate, and you probably won't need all the features that the latest, newest, top of the line kit has to offer. So match your gear to your needs. Identify what your needs are and match your equipment search to that. Tip number 2 is beware the path of infinite improvements. And this is a very easy thing to get caught up in. Don't chase specifications. Don't be tempted by the very latest, all singing, all dancing, bells and whistles on the newest models. They will not improve your photography. You don't need the latest camera to be a good photographer. You don't even need a complex camera to be a good photographer. A good photographer can get good results with any camera, so don't chase specifications. Specifications are there to tempt us. They're a marketing ploy. Yes, they're useful. Yes, they can be innovative, but by and large, they're a marketing tool and they're there to tempt us. A camera is a tool. It's a tool that achieves a specific purpose, and without that tool, you can't achieve that purpose. So, are you buying the right tool for the job? Ask yourself that question when you're matching what you need to specifications that a camera has to offer. Will it permit you to do something you need to do that you can't do now? That's a question you should ask yourself about any more features, any more advanced features that exist on a camera that you want to buy. Do you actually need a tenth of a second faster autofocus? The probability is you don't. If you follow that path to its conclusion, you'll end up with a camera you don't need, and it's very easy to get tempted along that path. But equally, be careful not to buy a camera with less specification than you need. It's all about matching your requirements to what the tool, the camera, can actually do. Match the tool to the job. I must admit, recently I got caught up in a little bit of spec chasing. I bought recently the Fujifilm X-T1 over here. Beautiful little camera, absolutely love it. But it doesn't have great video. In fact, its video is rather poor, and I do shoot quite a lot of video for the channel. So I decided I'd buy an X-T2, which has much nicer video. Lovely little camera, very much enjoyed using it, really beautiful thing, just right for me actually, because it's got that really nice video and it's an APS-C sensor camera, which I need for the channel. However, it wasn't long before I found myself thinking of X-T3s. I actually looked on eBay at X-T3s, they're £700-800, and I actually did begin to think, well, perhaps if I sell this one, I can get that one, and then I can have the in-body image stabilization, and that's bound to be a little bit better. I had to stop myself quite quickly. I really don't need an X-T3. This X-T2 is fine for my video needs. I'm going to put the brakes on that process and pronounce this one the one that I need. Match the tool to the job. Do your research and do it carefully. There are any number of online reviews about any camera you might care to name. There's a lot of detailed information out there, but there's also a lot of repetition, and some websites you look at have a very brief review of a camera. It's probably quite similar to a number of other reviews if it's not blatantly copied and pasted. I've seen those happen as well. So it's very clear that a lot of sites that claim to have reviewed cameras haven't actually been anywhere near the camera that they are talking about. They've taken an opinion from various reviews that they've read, and then they're just repeating it and regurgitating it, and that doesn't get anybody anywhere, except for them perhaps, who get a few more clicks on their website. So you've got to be very discerning, and you've got to be very careful when you're looking at those reviews, and you've got to have a built-in nonsense detector running to just work out which of them actually know what they're talking about. Now, of course, there are reputable review sites. DP Review, for example, springs to mind. But they can be very technical. DP Review is a good example of that. Some camera review sites are very, very technical, and they talk about very small technical points. Now, that's fine and fair enough as far as it goes, except personally I'm not particularly interested in tiny differences in spec between models. I'm more interested in how a camera feels, the kind of images it makes, the feel of the images that it makes, and how it would work for me, how I can use it in my work. So what you're really trying to do is derive and bring together an informed opinion, so you're really fully informed on the camera that you're looking at. With an informed opinion and a little common sense, you choose the camera rather than effectively letting somebody else choose it for you. Does the line of cameras you're looking at have a good range of lenses? A camera body is only as good as the lens that you fit on the front. The body itself can't work miracles. So you really need to know, A, does the camera that you're looking at have a good comprehensive selection of lenses? B, does it have lenses that you're going to need and that are going to serve you well and that will suit your purposes? For quite some time after its introduction, the Sony A7 series of cameras didn't have a very wide range of lenses, and that came up again and again in reviews that I read online. And it really was quite a few years before Sony could get those lenses together into a really coherent range of excellent lenses for, all photographic purposes. At the beginning, they just weren't there. Now, that mostly affects newer cameras, of course, and it doesn't really matter if you're using mostly vintage lenses, as I do and a lot of mirrorless shooters do, but it does limit the system, so be informed about your lenses. Do you need full frame? And that's a question that many mirrorless photographers must have asked themselves. There are lots of full-frame mirrorless models now. Sony doesn't have the monopoly anymore, so there are all the Sony models from the original A7, which I think you can still buy new. There are still one or two left, right through to the new A7 Compact. That looks like a beautiful little thing, and the A9. All of those Sony cameras are full frame. They've recently been joined by Nikon and also Canon, as well as Panasonic, who used to make only micro four thirds cameras but have recently broken out into the full frame market. There is no inherent reason for full frame to be any better than any other size of sensor. It's called full frame because it's the same size as a piece of 35mm film, and it was a goal, it was a technical goal. So maybe 10 years or so ago, it was a very, very difficult thing to do. Technically, that was the goal for camera designers and manufacturers, and it was the goal for many consumers as well, myself included. As soon as the full frame Sony came out, I bought it because I've been waiting for that camera to come along. As to whether you need it, no, you probably don't, in all honesty. APS-C cameras make very, very beautiful images. Micro Four Thirds cameras can make very beautiful images. Even the little tiny Pentax Q with its tiny, teeny, weeny little sensor that's not too much bigger than the sensor in a compact, even that little mirrorless camera makes beautiful images. So you don't necessarily need a full frame body unless you particularly want one. I bought one because I like to use vintage lenses, and on a full frame body, a vintage lens or one that was designed for a 35mm film camera will perform as designed. All the character is preserved, all of the lens's image falls onto the sensor and is captured by it. So that's why I bought one. I wanted a camera that would shoot the old lenses in the same way that the old film bodies used to shoot them and preserve all of that character. Crop sensor cameras have what's called a crop factor. So if you mount, for example, a 50mm lens on an APS-C sensor camera, that 50mm lens from the film days, because the sensor is smaller, will behave as though it's a 75mm lens, and a little of the lens's character will be lost from the edge of the frame. Now, personally, I'm not too bothered about the crop factor. I don't really too much mind whether a 50mm lens behaves as though it's a 75mm lens on an APS-C body, or indeed as a 100mm lens on a micro four thirds body. I'm really not concerned by that. The lens behaves as it behaves on the camera body, and it makes the images it makes. However, if you want to preserve more of the lens's camera on an APS-C body or a micro four thirds body, you can use a speed booster, which is an adapter with glass lens elements inside, and they will squish down the frame for you. Using a full frame camera, it's also easier to achieve blur from a given lens. A full frame camera will always give you that little bit more background blur. So if maximum blur is your thing, perhaps you might want to consider a full frame camera. But sensor size is only one factor in creating blur. There's also the speed of the lens, that is the width that the aperture will open up to, and also the focal length of the lens. A longer lens gives more blur, so it's very, very easy to get blur if that's what you want on an APS-C or a micro four thirds body. Do you need a full frame sensor? No, you probably don't. If you're buying used, get a good deal. Don't just buy the first camera that you see. Shop around, do your homework. There is lots of rubbish for sale online. There are some cameras for sale that have had a really hard life, are still managing to work, but are clearly near the end of their life. Don't buy end of life junk. It will be a little bit cheaper. It may serve you well for many years, or it may not. I would advise against it. Buy the best that you can. There are a lot of mint example mirrorless cameras for sale on the second-hand market, and you don't need to buy a lot of old rubbish that somebody doesn't want anymore. The best bargains, remember, are mint condition last generation or second to last generation from those people who are upgrading to the newest models. Those are the cameras you should look at. Does it inspire you? It's a very strange thing. Certain cameras, and this is true of all things, not just cameras, cars, you name it, whatever else, but certain cameras I find inspire me to do better work. I just bond with them. I like them. We seem to get along together. A camera is a tool, it's true, but it is a tool that you have to bond with, and you can't work, or it's very difficult to work with a tool that you don't like and you don't get along with. Which cameras have inspired me? Well, I can say for certain this little X-T1 inspired me. It's a beautiful little machine, and I just immediately bonded with it. It's so nice, and I felt that as I used it and as I handled it, just holding it in my hands, just the way it feels in my hands, is inspiring in some intangible way. I really don't know why, but I like this camera and I get along with it better than I do, for example, this little GH2 over here. The GH2 is a lovely little camera, nothing wrong with it at all, but this one I get along with more. It's the same for the Sony A7 that I'm filming with now and that I've used to shoot all the lens videos with, all the still shots for the lens videos. I love that camera. As soon as I picked it up, I knew that was the right camera. It's small, it's neat, but beyond its specification, it's got something that I can't explain, something that I just get on with, something that inspires me to take what I think and hope are better images. The Leica 2 also, the little Leica 2 from the 1930s, this Nikon FE here. Very inspiring tools, a kind of tool, the kind of camera that when you pick it up, you just want to start shooting. It naturally draws you into the visual field and you become one with the machine and one with your surrounding, and it just kind of works. On the other hand, there are cameras that I just don't like very much. I just don't get on with. There's nothing wrong with them. They're fine, good, capable, reliable cameras, but I just don't like using them. I could put among that number the Zorki C, which was a very, very nice little former Soviet Union rangefinder. Lovely little camera from Zorki. Just couldn't get on with it. Something about the look I didn't like. I just couldn't get along with it. The Zorki 6 is another one. A very nice, very capable camera with improvements over the rest of the Zorki range, but I just don't get on with it. The Sony a6000 that I reviewed recently. Beautiful little camera, nothing wrong with it at all. Very, very capable, very, very powerful, very, very small, and has all the attributes and abilities that make it into a real powerhouse of a camera. But I don't know, there's something about it. I just can't bond with it. I just can't get along with it. So make sure that the camera you've got inspires you. If it inspires you, it's likely to improve your photography, not least because you'll have it with you more often. And practice and experience are the single biggest factors in improving your photography. Try before you buy, if you can, because the physicality of a camera goes a long way towards determining whether or not you're going to get on with it. So ask yourself, does it handle nicely? Are all the buttons clearly and easily accessible for my hand size and my finger size? Does it fit your hands, or is it too big or too small? Are you liable to lose it? Maybe you can't fully grip the grip. Is the weight about right? You don't want a camera that's too heavy. A light, small camera is a real boon. Is it easy to operate, or is it a very confusing sort of camera to operate? Does it have the kind of operating system that you intuitively seem to tune into, or do you find it fiddly and difficult and irritating? Handle one of the cameras that you want to buy if you can. If you can't handle that one exactly, maybe handle one of the nearest ones, perhaps the next model on. But it is important, if you can, to handle the camera that you want to buy. So my final point for today has, I'm sure, been said by many other people and on many other occasions, but it bears repeating. Do you need a new camera, or would you be better off with a new lens? A new body might not improve your images as much as a new lens might. A new lens might improve your images a lot more than a few more megapixels or focus points. And it'll help you to extract the maximum performance from the camera that you've got. Ask yourself what you actually want to buy here. Do you want to buy features that will very soon be outdated as soon as the next model comes along? Or do you want to buy high quality glass that will never be outdated, ever? That's an important question to ask. So those are my top tips for buying a mirrorless camera. As I say, there are many mint condition cameras out there, ranging from less than £100 to, gosh, £800 to £1,000. But along that range of prices are some very capable, very powerful photographic machines. So I can only wish you good luck in your search. So that's it from me for now. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and ring that bell before you go. And if you like the content on this channel and you'd like to support it and help it to grow and develop, you can do that at patreon.com/the Zenography. As ever, thank you very, very much for watching, and I will see you next time for some more Zenography.